All right, so it's time for part two of this discussion, and this is the discussion that we started out talking about the Star Wars game that Ubisoft Massive is working on, and the potential that it could be an RPG game or a game that is styled along the lines of The Division than The Division 2, and how I believe most of the Division community might be a potential audience that can leverage the way that game is, and also the fact that Ubisoft Massive has made these two games, they might stick with their strengths just the way DICE also stuck with their own in quote strengths when they made Star Wars Battlefront 2, the 2017 multiplayer game, somewhat from their experience from the Battlefield franchises that they've been working on in the past. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you who tune into these videos and who make your comments and add your opinions. It really does help to foster these conversations, and very honestly, most of us don't really know that our developers are very keen on what gamers are pretty much saying along the lines. It's one of those things where if you think about it, you know, developers really do need a lot of the feedback from gamers, and one way to get a lot of free feedback is going on forums like YouTube, Reddit, and all of the other, you know, public forums that gamers gather on, so that they can just glean information and glean a lot of free data that's out there. So you never know, your comment may perhaps spur something that you are probably not even thinking is going to happen in some video game of your liking, or even a video game that you don't like, and potentially that might bring you into that universe. And so let's go into this Star Wars thing, looking at that, because there is a huge difference in opinions as to how the Star Wars franchise has been handled in the past few years. For me, I was not necessarily part of the people who adopted any of the initial 6 movies. I'm somebody who came in from the part of the Clone Wars, the Star Wars Rebels, the animated series, because to me, they allowed a lot more time to flesh out a lot of the storylines, the character arches, and even expose a lot more of the different tribes and ethnicities and even planets that are in the Star Wars universe. Bringing it into the Division side of things, I've already argued that potentially there are a lot of Star Wars stories that have not necessarily been fully explored outside of the context of the books and even some of the animated series that could make for a very strong and solid video game entry if Ubisoft Massive decides to take it that direction. Now, to be very honest again about all of this, I'm secretly hoping and wishing that the Ubisoft Massive game will strongly feature the Mandalorian tribe and the Mandalorian storyline. Now, I don't know how likely this is, but it doesn't seem like it's an impossibility. So let's think about this for a moment. Jon Favreau, who is pretty much the spearheading, a person who pretty much conceptualized the TV show The Mandalorian and brought it to fruition and basically made the whole Disney Plus platform and even the Star Wars universe receive a little bit more respect, is somebody that is well respected within the movie industry. He's been in the Marvel scene, acting, in the Avengers movies as Tony Stark's driver, and also some sort of a chaperone for the little new Spider-Man, from the Homecoming series. And, he's somebody that is a hustler. He's always had a very strong passion for his work, and that's why you can always see the quality. One really interesting thing a lot of people don't know is he's actually a gamer at heart, which is somebody who appreciates video games. And if you really want to see some glimpses of that, you have to look at 2 areas that I'm going to show you in this video. The very first one was an IGN interview for his movie Cowboys and Aliens. In the middle of the interview, they started to ask him a bunch of questions about video games, and IGN is supposedly a gaming publication or of some sort, and so the video game side of the whole conversation came up, and behold, he actually is somebody that is very well versed in video games. In fact, he was even talking about how that movie Cowboys and Aliens, for them to even get into production, they played a lot of the first Red Dead Redemption game. And then even in the middle of the whole interview, somebody handed him a Nintendo DS and they started talking about Zelda games and Nintendo games. I thought to myself, this is crazy. Now, this was 11 years ago. Even more recently, and many of you may not know, Jon Favreau has actually set up a studio that's actually developing a VR game that's going to be under his own supervision. So he's not only a movie producer, he's not only a movie director, he's also somebody who is working on pioneering a new VR experience. So for those of you who don't really think he's a gamer at heart, I don't know how much more he'll need to prove himself, because the guy is literally making and producing his own game. Now, yes, he's not in the full-on works of it, but it's something that's being done by professional developers, but it's a project project that he's spearheading using the Unreal Engine 4. I'll link a video here in the description for you guys to check that out. Now, that being said, someone like Jon Favreau knows that he probably will not be able to field a game like The Mandalorian, and he, being a gamer at heart, might be somebody that Julian Garrity, who is the creative director for this Star Wars project, might be in close contact with while all of this is going on. Usually a director like him will wear many hats, because even within The Mandalorian, it was kind of a project that was actually done under his supervision, where multiple directors were directing different episodes. So I think there's a little bit of room to talk to the person that's going to be developing the next Star Wars game, especially after all that's been built up in the past few years. I mean, think about everything so far, kind of like this very huge decline in the way Star Wars fans treated the franchise compared to when The Mandalorian came out, and then they peaked it out at the end with a very huge homage to the old school Star Wars fans. I think there's something really important about this kind of collaboration that I think we're going to see. Nonetheless, if you go and see how Lucasfilms even treated the development process with EA's Respawn in Jedi Fallen Order, there was a very close quarters type of collaboration going on. And what I mean by that is there's actually a 1 hour plus documentary where in the development of Jedi Fallen Order, they had some people from Lucasfilm actually consult with the studio for a very extensive period of time. You're going to see them a lot in that interview where they talk about all kinds of things and their duties to ensure that that game followed a lot of the canon. So you're also going to see something like this in this Star Wars game, depending on the direction that Ubisoft Massive wants to go. And I would say that Julian Garrity has so much more resources now than I think even the Jedi team probably had access to. Somebody like Jon Favreau might be willing to open up the Mandalorian story to be explored in this particular video game scenario. And even not even talking about the structure of the game, because my last video we talked about it being some sort of an RPG looter type game. But even still, even if it's not, I still think that story can really spur on something to bring some really solid Star Wars games into the universe right now. Because if you go back and look at the way the other Star Wars games were structured, you had the Force Unleashed games, you had the other games that, the other Battlefront games, you had the other, Republic games as well that were also multiplayer, cooperative type games. There are other, avenues that could be explored. And I think this opportunity really does present itself to be a very solid one right now, and the room for error is very minimal, but the opportunities for success are also very, very large. I mean, think about everything so far that can actually come into this. So what are we banking on? I'm saying in my mind that we're banking on potentially Jon Favreau being a pivotal player in this particular game development, in the sense that they're able to tap into his expertise. They're able to maybe appeal to him to allow for them to explore some very popular stories already, or even some stories that he's about to start working on the main screen. For those of you who don't know, there is going to be a TV show called The Book of Boba Fett, I think, that was supposed to follow The Mandalorian, and also Ahsoka is going to get her own series. If you don't know who Ahsoka is now in this particular universe, he's now grown up to be a full-blown Jedi Master, actually, but she was a Padawan of Skywalker, and I'm talking Anakin Skywalker. So you need to follow that storyline to be able to see, and she did make an appearance in The Mandalorian, and I think everybody kind of resonated with that. People who knew her from the Star Wars, Clone Wars TV shows, and even the Rebels TV shows, they knew that Ahsoka was kind of a solid and grounded character, well-written, well-rounded. I mean, there was just a down-to-earth character, no agendas behind her. It was just one of those pure characters that you could say, yes, this is a kind of character that you actually wants to carry the mantle of what the Jedi, needs to be. So these might be characters that would need to be explored in all of these, and I'm talking the mainstream characters. Now, again, there are also some very back-end characters that some of you had mentioned in the comment section, and I thought this is quite interesting. Some of you mentioned some characters, that are pretty much in the books and in the, the literature of Star Wars. And I think to my own detriment, I haven't really engaged in a lot of the Star Wars books because, I'm still kind of the person that just got into it just somewhere around 2014. Even after being introduced years earlier, I didn't even bother. And so that's kind of a transition for me. So I need to look into all these other characters. Now, even some far side characters that are, characters that would appear once in a while, in my opinion, still have a lot of interesting characteristics that can be explored for fully fleshed video games. Crazy as it may sound, when you think about the way the Jedi Fallen Order game went about with Cal Kestis and, you know, all of the other characters, and, you know, you also had Saw Gerrera there as well, which is really interesting. You know, you have to say, well, you know, these characters, sure, they're decent characters, but man, they are not very interesting or as multi-dimensional as some other characters, you know, you can explore, and some of the other bounty hunters that have a very deep and rich storyline, a deep and rich background. And these are characters that you can definitely throw into these video game franchises as they're coming out. And I think Ubisoft Massive just really has to make sure that whatever it is that they're doing, that they are able to represent the richness of the Star Wars universe in it. And now this video I'm making is pretty much a video to highlight that there is a lot of opportunity out there for them. And man, if they bungle this, it's gonna be a darn shame. So again, you know, I'm making my own case saying, you know, it could be nice if they were to leverage the game for an RPG looter shooter for the community of gamers that they have served in their past 2 big titles. But then at the same time, if that's not the direction that they're going, they still have a lot of options to still make good of a Star Wars game nonetheless. And they even still have the, I don't know, the friendliness of some of Star Wars' most important creators right now, which are, you know, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and their team, to still at least unlock some levels of, or some layers of the Star Wars story to allow for them to adopt them into the video games. So I don't know. I think we can say the future looks, you know, bright, but again, this could be hindered by a lot of different weird corporate issues that may, you know, arise. But we're hoping that these things can kind of step out of the way and Ubisoft Massive can just go in and just purely develop the game. But again, this video is not going to be relevant for another few years, in my opinion, but I still always love talking about these topics basically ahead of everybody else, because, you know, it's really interesting to see how our thoughts and our opinions would change over time. But that's it for me though. Thank you so much for listening to the video. I want to hear your thoughts. Let's talk about this stuff in the comment section. And like I started out this video, your comments are probably being read by somebody who is able to make some serious decisions. So even if you've never commented on a YouTube video, I mean, it's anonymous anyways for the most part. So go ahead and leave a comment. Say something that you feel is on your mind about all of this, and we'll see you in another video. Thank you guys so much. Peace out.